Digestion and absorption. One of the basic requirements of all living organisms is food. Carbohydrates, proteins, and fats are the major components of our food. In small quantities, vitamins and minerals are also required. Energy and organic materials are provided by food for growth and repair of tissues. In metabolic processes, the water we take in plays an important role and also prevents dehydration of the body. In their original form, biomacromolecules in food cannot be utilized by our body. In the digestive system, they have to be broken down and converted into simple substances. Digestion is this process of conversion of complex food substances to simple absorbable forms. Our digestive system carries out digestion by mechanical and biochemical methods. Digestive system. The alimentary canal and the associated glands constitute the human digestive system. Alimentary canal. The alimentary canal begins with the mouth, an anterior opening, and it opens out posteriorly through the anus. The mouth leads to the oral cavity or buccal cavity. The oral cavity has a muscular tongue and a number of teeth. In the socket of jawbone, each tooth is embedded. This kind of attachment is called thecodont. During their life, human beings and a majority of mammals form two sets of teeth, a set of deciduous teeth or temporary milk teeth replaced by a set of permanent or adult teeth. This type of dentition is called ephyodont. In an adult human, 32 permanent teeth are present, which are of four different types, namely incisors, canine, premolars, and molars. In human, arrangement of teeth in each half of the upper and lower jaw in the order ICPM is represented by the dental formula 2123 by 2123. In the mastication of food, surface of the teeth is made up of enamel which helps in hard chewing. A freely movable muscular organ, the tongue, is attached by the frenulum to the floor of the oral cavity. Small projections called papillae are present on the upper surface of the tongue, some of which bear taste buds. A common passage for food and air is the oral cavity that leads into a short pharynx. The tracheae and esophagus opens into the pharynx. During swallowing, epiglottis, a cartilaginous flap, prevents the entry of food into the glottis and opening of the windpipe. A thin long tube, the esophagus, extends posteriorly, passing through the neck, thorax, and diaphragm into a J-shaped bag-like structure called stomach. The opening of esophagus into the stomach is regulated by a muscular sphincter or gastroesophageal sphincter. In the upper left portion of the abdominal cavity, the stomach is located, which has three major parts. A portion into which the esophagus opens called a cardiac portion, a fundic region, and a pyloric portion, which opens into the first part of the small intestine. Small intestine is divided into three regions, a U-shaped duodenum, jejunum, a long coiled middle portion, and ileum, which is highly coiled. The pyloric sphincter guards the opening of the stomach into the duodenum. Ileum opens into the large intestine. A large intestine consists of cecum, colon, and rectum. Some symbiotic microorganisms are present in a small blind sac called cecum. The vermiform appendix, a narrow finger-like tubular projection, which is a vestigial organ, arises from the cecum. The cecum opens into the colon. The colon is divided into an ascending and a transverse and a descending part. The descending part opens into the rectum, which then opens out through the anus. The wall of alimentary canal possesses four layers from esophagus to rectum, namely serosa, muscularis, submucosa, and mucosa. The outermost layer, serosa, is made up of a thin mesothelium with some connective tissue. The second layer, muscularis, is made up of smooth muscles arranged usually into an inner circular and an outer longitudinal layer. In some regions, an oblique muscle layer may be present. The third layer, called the submucosal layer, is made up of loose connective tissue containing nerves, blood, and lymph vessels. The submucosal layer of the wall of duodenum consists of glands. In the wall of the alimentary canal, the innermost layer lining its lumen is the mucosa. This layer in the stomach forms irregular folds, and in the small intestine it forms small finger-like foldings called villi. Numerous microscopic projections called microvilli are produced by the cell lining the villi, giving a brush border appearance. These modifications enormously increase the surface area. A network of capillaries and a large lymph vessel called the lacteal are supplied to the villi. Goblet cells which secrete mucus are present in the mucosal epithelium that help in lubrication. In the stomach, mucosa also forms glands, and in the intestine, crypts in between the bases of villi. In different parts of the alimentary canal, all the four layers show modifications. Digestive glands. The digestive glands, such as salivary gland, the liver, and the pancreas, are associated with the alimentary canal. Three pairs of salivary glands, the parotids, the submaxillary or submandibular, and the sublinguals, mainly produce saliva. Situated just outside the buccal cavity, these glands secrete salivary juice into the buccal cavity. Liver, weighing about 1.2 to 1.5 kilograms, is the largest gland in the body in an adult human. It has two lobes and is situated in the abdominal cavity, just below the diaphragm. The structural and functional units of liver are the hepatic lobules, which contain hepatic cells arranged in the form of cords. A thin connective tissue sheath called the Glissen's capsule covers each lobule. The hepatic cells secrete bile, which passes through the hepatic ducts and is concentrated and stored in a thin muscular sac called the gall bladder. The common bile duct is formed from the duct of gall bladder along with the hepatic duct from the liver. Together into the duodenum, the bile duct and the pancreatic duct open as a common hepatopancreatic duct. The hepatopancreatic duct is guarded by a sphincter called the sphincter of Oddi. A compound, elongated organ, the pancreas is situated between the limbs of the U-shaped duodenum. An alkaline pancreatic juice containing enzymes is secreted by the exocrine portion, and the hormones insulin and glucagon is secreted by the endocrine portion. Digestion of food. By mechanical and chemical processes, the process of digestion is accomplished. The two major functions, the mastication of food and facilitation of swallowing the food, is performed by the buccal cavity. The teeth and the tongue masticate and mix up the food thoroughly with the help of saliva. In the saliva, mucus helps in lubricating and adhering the masticated food particles into the bolus. The bolus is then conveyed by swallowing or deglutition into the pharynx and then into the esophagus. Through the esophagus, the bolus further passes down by successive waves of muscular contraction called peristalsis. The passage of food into the stomach is controlled by the gastroesophageal sphincter. The oral cavity into which the saliva is secreted contains electrolytes, enzymes, salivary amylase, and lysozyme. In the oral cavity, the chemical process of digestion is initiated by the hydrolytic action of salivary amylase, a carbohydrate splitting enzyme. By this enzyme, about 30% of starch is hydrolyzed here into a disaccharide maltose. In saliva, lysozyme is present, which acts as an antibacterial agent that prevents infection. The gastric glands are present in the mucosa of stomach. Three major types of cells are present in the gastric glands, namely 1. Mucous neck cells that secrete mucus, 2. Peptic or chief cells which secrete the proenzyme pepsinogen, and 3. Parietal or oxyntic cells which secrete HCl, an intrinsic factor. The food is stored for 4 to 5 hours in the stomach. Thoroughly with the acidic gastric juice of the stomach, the food mixes with the churning movements of its muscular wall and is called chyme. On exposure to hydrochloric acid, the proenzyme pepsinogen gets converted into the active enzyme pepsin, a proteolytic enzyme of the stomach. Proteins are converted into proteoses and peptones by pepsin. The gastric juice contains mucus and bicarbonates which play an important role in lubrication and protection of the mucosal epithelium by the highly concentrated hydrochloric acid from excoriation. The acidic pH is provided by HCl, which is optimal for pepsins. The proteolytic enzyme found in gastric juice of infants called renin helps in the digestion of milk proteins. Gastric glands also secrete small amounts of lipases. The muscularis layer of the small intestine generates various types of movements. A thorough mixing up of the food with the help of these movements and with various secretions in the intestine thereby facilitate digestion. The secretions released into the small intestine are bile, pancreatic juice, and the intestinal juice. Through the hepatopancreatic duct, pancreatic juice and bile are released. Inactive enzymes present in pancreatic juice are trypsinogen, chymotrypsinogen, procarboxypeptidases, amylases, lipases, and nucleases. An enzyme enterokinase secreted by the intestinal mucosa activates trypsinogen into active trypsin, which in turn activates the other enzymes in the pancreatic juice. Bile pigments, bile salts, cholesterol, and phospholipids, but no enzymes are present in bile, which is released into the duodenum. Bile helps in emulsification of fats, that is, the fats are broken down into very small micelles. Also, lipases are activated by bile. The goblet cells secrete mucus and are present in intestinal mucosal epithelium. The secretions of the goblet cells along with the secretions of the brush border cells of the mucosa constitute the intestinal juice or succus entericus. A variety of enzymes are present in this juice like disaccharides, dipeptidases, lipases, nucleosidases, etc. The pancreas consisting of the mucus and bicarbonates protects the intestinal mucosa from acid as well as provide an alkaline medium for enzymatic activities. Submucosal glands also help in this. In the chyme, proteins, proteoses, and peptones on reaching the intestine are acted upon by the proteolytic enzymes of pancreatic juice. By pancreatic amylase, carbohydrates in the chyme are hydrolyzed into disaccharides. With the help of bile, fats are broken down by lipases into di and monoglycerides. In the pancreatic juice, nucleases acts on nucleic acid to form nucleotides and nucleosides. In succus entericus, to form the respective simple absorbable forms, the enzymes act on the end products of the reaction. secretions. In digestion, these final steps occur very close to the mucosal epithelial cells of the intestine. In the duodenum region of the small intestine, the breakdown of biomacromolecules mentioned above occurs. In the jejunum and ileum regions of the small intestine, the simple substances thus formed are absorbed. The substances that are undigested and unabsorbed are passed on to the large intestine. In the large intestine, no significant digestive activity occurs. The functions of the large intestine are: 1. Some water, minerals, and certain drugs are absorbed. 2. In adhering the waste particles together and lubricating it for an easy passage, secretion of mucus takes place. In the cecum of the large intestine, the undigested and unabsorbed substances called feces enter through ileocacal valve, which prevents the backflow of the fecal matter. In the rectum, it is temporarily stored till defecation. For proper coordination of different parts of activities of the gastrointestinal tract are under neural and hormonal control. The secretion of saliva can be stimulated at the sight, smell, and/or the presence of food in the oral cavity. Similarly, intestinal and gastric secretions are also stimulated by neural signals. By neural mechanism, both local and through CNS, the muscular activities of different parts of the alimentary canal can also be moderated. By the local hormones produced by the gastric and intestinal mucosa, hormonal control of the secretion of digestive juices is carried out. Absorption of digested products, the process by which the end products of digestion pass into the blood or lymph through the intestinal mucosa, is called absorption. By passive, active, or facilitated transport mechanisms, absorption is carried out. By simple diffusion, some of the electrolytes like chloride ions and monosaccharides like glucose, amino acids in small amounts are generally absorbed. The concentration gradients depends upon the passage of these substances into the blood. However, with the help of the carrier ions like sodium ions, some of the substances like fructose and some amino acids are absorbed, and this mechanism is called the facilitated transport. Transport of water depends upon the osmotic gradient. Active transport requires energy as it occurs against the concentration gradient. By this mechanism, various nutrients like amino acids, monosaccharides like glucose, electrolytes like sodium ions are absorbed into the blood. Fatty acids and glycerol cannot be absorbed into the blood as they are insoluble. They move into the intestinal mucosa, but first they are incorporated into small droplets called micelles. They are reformed into chylomicrons, that are very small protein-coated fat globules which are transported into the lymph vessels in the villi. Ultimately, the absorbed substances are released into the bloodstream by the lymph vessels. In different parts of the alimentary canal like mouth, stomach, small intestine and large intestine, absorption of substances takes place. However, in the small intestine, maximum absorption occurs. The tissues finally utilize the absorbed substances for their activities, and this process is called assimilation. Solidified into coherent feces in the rectum, the digestive waste initiate a neural reflux causing an urge or a desire for its removal. Through the anal opening, the ejection of feces into the outside is a voluntary process and is carried out by a mass peristaltic movement. Disorders of digestive system. Due to bacterial or viral infections, the inflammation of the intestinal tract is the most common ailment. The parasites of the intestine like tapeworm, roundworm, threadworm, hookworm, pinworm, etc. also cause infections. Jaundice. The liver is affected due to the deposition of bile pigments in the skin and eyes turn yellow. Vomiting. Through the mouth, the ejection of stomach contents is called vomiting. In the medulla, this reflex action is controlled by the vomit center. A feeling of nausea precedes vomiting. Diarrhea. Diarrhea is the abnormal frequency of bowel movement and increased liquidity of the fecal discharge. The absorption of food is reduced. Constipation. In constipation, the bowel movements occur irregularly as the feces are retained within the rectum. Indigestion. In this condition, there is a feeling of fullness as the food is not digested properly. Inadequate enzyme secretion, anxiety, food poisoning, overeating, and spicy food cause indigestion. Thank you so much for watching. Please share this video with your friends. Leave your comments below and please subscribe to my channel for more content. Click that bell notification that would let you know when a new video is uploaded. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, please subscribe to my channel for more content. For more videos, please check the description box down below.